Hello everyone, you're back with the Lone Wolf once again. Welcome to the channel. Today's video is going to be another one where I discuss individuals, real and fictional, who espouse aspects of my interpretation of living the lone wolf lifestyle in its optimal form. As with all my videos, I hope you enjoy it, find my thoughts useful. Recently I watched the film Boyz in the Hood for about the 20th time, and I always find myself inspired by Lawrence Fishburne's portrayal of Jason Furious Styles. Given the film is about a group of friends that grow up in South Central LA, a very tough neighborhood where a trip to the store can get you shot, you would think that a person such as myself can never relate to being a child in that environment. Indeed, the film was intended in many ways to draw wider attention to what was going on in South Central in the early 90s, and it was very successful at doing that. It truly is a great film about brotherhood and friendship in the midst of the struggles posed purely by living in that environment. I've spoken before about having surrogate father figures from fictional sources, but also real people and via the internet. And Furious certainly does provide a sterling example of a positive father figure. He also espouses many aspects of being a lone wolf throughout the film, in my opinion, and I'm going to highlight these instances later on. There will be spoilers in this video, so please, if you haven't seen the film, go and watch it as soon as possible before returning. Furious Styles is introduced early on as the divorced 27-year-old father of 10-year-old Trey Styles, portrayed by Cuba Gooding Jr. Trey initially lives with his mother in Inglewood, California, but due to a number of fights at school, he is moved to live with his father in Crenshaw. Reva, his mother, justifies this by telling Furious that Trey needs to learn how to be a man, and that only Furious can provide such an education. This admission is only too telling about the value that she places on Furious as a man despite being divorced from him, and she understands the value that a strong male leader can provide, a male influence on a kid's life. So many single mothers these days, and indeed in the film, seem to just dismiss the idea of what a man can provide and the influence and the values that they can impart on the children. And they think they can just do it all by themselves with the state as their husband. From the outset, Furious takes a tougher approach with Trey, making him sweep the front lawn and collect the leaves until dusk. When Trey questions what his father has to do around the house, he is firm in his response, saying, "All I have to do is pay the bills, put food on the table and clothes on your back. You're the prince, but I'm the king." Trey thinks that Furious is being hard on him, but in actuality he is teaching him about how to take care of himself and be responsible. This is relevant given that Trey's best friends, maternal half-brothers Ricky and Doughboy, live across the street with their single mother Brenda. Ricky has a passion for American football and is generally well-intentioned if a bit naive. Doughboy, however, is more pragmatic and street-smart, willing to stand up for himself against a local Crips gang that steal Ricky's football. Furious is the only father in the neighborhood and begins to impart valuable wisdom about life and parenting to his son. On a fishing trip, he implores Trey not to join the army, having served in Vietnam as a youth, and asserts that any man with equipment can make a baby, but only a real man can raise his children correctly. He explains that he used to hang around with troublemakers and thieves and could have been dragged into crime, but he decided to be responsible because he had a baby on the way. Perhaps illustrating the value of this conversation, when they both return to the neighborhood, Doughboy and his friend Chris are being taken away for shoplifting and end up in juvenile hall. The vastly different paths that the boys take on their journey of development illustrates the value of a strong father figure or mentor, and real-world examples of this can be found all over the place. You just have to look at the knife crime epidemic in London, for example, where so many of the young men that perpetrate these acts of extreme violence come from broken homes and single mother households. 7 years later, and a party is being held for Doughboy on his return from prison. He has now gotten big due to eating and lifting weights all day in prison, given the lack of much else to do. Ricky is now a star running back for his school and has a toddler son with his girlfriend, which would have been ill-advised if he'd had any male guidance on the topic, especially given his promise as an athlete. Why would he jeopardize such a stellar career that can be so financially rewarding with having a child so early in his life. In contrast to these examples, Trey is a moral, upstanding young man, working at a clothes shop and performing well at school. On returning home, Trey gets a haircut from his father while lying about losing his virginity. Pressing him, Furious asks if he rubbered up, given that he was 17 himself when he became a father. And this is powerful advice and demonstrates ownership of his actions, while enabling his son to profit from his experience and knowledge. The movie is punctuated by pearls of wisdom from Furious like this. Throughout the film, Furious is never shown with a woman except his ex-wife, when Reva tries to take her son back, in a fashion, and this exchange is amusing, as Furious attempts to stamp his authority. He's often shown reading, demonstrating an interest in sociology and racial and class struggle. He also appears scholarly and uses bounding balls to develop dexterity and strengthen his hands. He also appears to have renown in the community as an erudite and knowledgeable man. And Trey alludes to the fact that Furious reads a lot, a fact further supported by Doughboy, who compares him to Malcolm Farrakhan. The erroneous path that Doughboy falls down inevitably ends up corrupting and endangering Ricky's life, and he is ultimately killed by gang members. Doughboy seeks revenge, and despite talking Trey down from arming himself and accompanying his friends, Furious and Trey's girlfriend Brandy discover that he has snuck out the window. Thankfully though, Trey realizes the danger he is in and leaves the car, following which Doughboy exacts revenge on the gang. The cycle of destruction continues though, as Doe is killed post-credits, whereas Trey and Brandy move away and go to university and have a good life together. Lawrence Fishburne has alluded to the tremendous impact that his character has had on fatherless children, and I remember watching an interview from the extras on the Blu-ray that he's been told by one particular man that his character was the father he never had. To hear such words and praise about your portrayal of a character must be truly heartwarming and worth more in my view than any Oscar recognition. The lessons his character imparts during the film apply not just to people in that particular neighbourhood and time, they can be extrapolated to our own lives as well. Furious is a lone wolf because he lives alone, he reads, he doesn't seem to date, he doesn't remarry. Learning his lesson, I suppose. He puts his time into his work and study, building up his business, reading, becoming more aware of social and political issues, and probably most importantly, raising his son. And there are a great many quotes from the film of value from Furious. And it's because of his stable influence on Trey's life that he is able to escape the environment and go on to have a productive life. Meanwhile, Brenda, the single mother, ends up losing both of her sons because of the poor mistakes that she's made throughout their growth and maturation, and by having ill-advised relations with irresponsible men. I hope you enjoyed this video and found some of my points informative. If you think this series, this type of content is beneficial, has potential, I'd be glad to hear your thoughts. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you again in the next video.